Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Monday, June 13th. The LA Galaxy getting ready to come out of their international break hibernation. We're going to update you on all of the international players. That'll be fun. A lot of little things going on, some players out there. We'll tell you where they are, how they've been playing, that type of thing. So we're going to get you up with that. We're going to get you at least pointed in the direction of the game against Portland. Don't worry, we won't preview that game, but we're at least going to talk a little bit about what's coming up and the schedule and all sorts of fun stuff that's coming up here sort of in the second half of the season. We'll call it the second half of the season, even though it's probably not quite halfway there yet. All right, so we're going to talk about that, then more Dejan Joveljic, more transfer, sort of what the LA Galaxy need as well. So a lot to get to, a lot to talk about. A man who literally rushed back from the airport just to get here in time. He's there. We don't have his video up working, but his audio is working. So, Mr. Kevin Baxter, how you doing, buddy? Are you hanging in there?
Yeah, I just flew in from San Francisco, and boy, am I tired.
Yeah.
You look familiar. You look familiar.
Yeah.
Didn't you used to have a soccer podcast in LA?
Yeah, didn't you used to cover MLS games? I mean, you know,
if we're NASCAR this weekend.
Yeah, I know. I saw you out at NASCAR this weekend. It looks like you were having fun, though. I mean, there's big engines, it's loud. NASCAR is a certain type of thing going on there.
But you know, the other reason I almost didn't make it for this podcast is speaking of NASCAR, on the way home from the Burbank airport, there was a spectacular NASCAR style crash on the freeway with a car just spinning in the middle lanes and bouncing off the wall. And I couldn't drive by. I mean, I've learned very well from the lovely and talented Mrs. Panda that you just don't drive by those things. She's a much better person than I am, as you know. So with her as my inspiration, I pulled over into the shoulder, jumped over the wall like a pit crew guy.
Right.
And I got to the car. They had tinted windows, so I couldn't see in, and there was no one moving. I didn't know like they were dead or what. And thankfully, they had a sunroof and it was open, and I was able to climb up on top of the car and look in, and there were 4 people in there, and they were scared. They all needed new underwear. There's no question.
They were scared. They were scared because you were climbing on their car.
That didn't help. But they were all okay, and I told them that they were in a safe place, and if they wanted, they could probably get out of the car. No one was hurt, but it was kind of rush hour. No one else stopped. Come on, California.
I mean, that's very California whenever you think about it. But no, I will look. I mean, look at you, the hero that we all needed. We didn't want, but the hero that we got, right? That's you.
You'll be happy to know that the first thing that crossed my mind is I can stop to help these people, or I can make it to the pod, but I might not be able to do both.
We're a couple minutes late. We can't get your video working. I mean, overall, I think we will at least, if your story holds up, which I'm now launching a full investigation into, then we will excuse your tardiness in this particular time. So no, we're glad you're here.
Isn't this the best way to have me on the pod with just my voice and not? Sometimes not even my voice, but certainly not my face. This is probably better for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the downside, of course, is everybody gets to stare at me for 30 minutes, and I think maybe that's a little too rough or I guess 60 minutes. It's a little too rough for some people. It's a Monday. Mondays are always rough. I always tell people that, you know, people go, well, don't you ever get tired of doing this? Yes, on Mondays. Because you go to work on Monday, you have your weekend, you do whatever you do on your weekend, you're usually tired on Monday. You go to work, you make it through work, and then you're sitting there going, okay, It's Monday. What do I get to do? I get to go home and relax now? No, I get to prepare for a podcast. So I'm always like, maybe Monday isn't the best day to be doing a podcast, but at the same time, it lines up so perfectly with so many things that happen over the weekend and just sort of get everybody ready for this week that's upcoming. And it's a big week.
We could talk about, rather than talk about what happened over the weekend, we could talk about what happened 2 weekends ago when you were not there to whisper sweet nothings into Greg Vanney's ear about don't play Dejan. And so Dejan gets to play. And what happens? 2 goals and 2 assists.
It's kind of Trumpian in the way that you tried to rephrase all of that. Like, I wasn't there whenever he played against LAFC. Like, I haven't been there for every game that he's played against basically everybody. You haven't been there, but I have been there.
That's true, but I did see the 2 goals and 2 assists.
Yeah, it's one of those. You were there, so you got to see it. Now, I certainly watched from afar, and I saw everything that was going on. We talked about it on Thursday with Hammer as well, and just sort of the feelings around it. But you were there, so this is a game that the LA Galaxy looked very, very good at, and sort of my argument has been that if you put LAFC and you put Austin next to each other, that they are a particular type of team, right? They're a team that likes to attack. They're a team that likes to move forward. There are types of teams that think that they want to impose their will upon other teams. And they don't sit back and they don't defend in low blocks. And Austin doesn't do that. And ultimately, Austin probably could have used some of that to their advantage, but they don't. They're too good for that. Same for LAFC. They have too much respect for themselves to just play sort of these low block counterattacking games. And when they don't do that and teams want to play against the LA Galaxy are very successful. That's what I see in the 2 games. Unfortunately, I don't see this giant sea change that all of a sudden the LA Galaxy are this much better team.
No, but they did seem to have a little bit more chemistry. The backheel pass, I thought, that set up the Chicharito goal was really good.
Yeah.
And Austin is here's the thing with Austin, for me, it's difficult to measure the Galaxy's progress because Austin has kind of gone in the tank. Now, Austin did have that big win over LAFC where they barely hung on,
right.
And their goalkeeper had just an amazing, amazing game, probably the best game I've seen by a goalkeeper this year. And that was when they beat LAFC 2-1 at Bank of California. On either side of that, the Galaxy beat them 1-0 in Austin, and then the Galaxy had this big explosion and beat them at Dignity Health Sports Park. So did the Galaxy improve that much in 4 weeks from the 1-0 to the game that we saw 2 weeks ago? I don't know. Austin's really hit the skid, so it's really tough to measure how good the Galaxy are now.
Yeah, and you can say that, but then you also had the LA Galaxy's most dominant performance against LAFC, right? And that was in the Open Cup just a couple days before this game. So, yes, you want to go ahead and say how good are the LA Galaxy compared to those 2 games, but we've seen them sort of play again. For me, it's the type of teams that they're beating. And it doesn't surprise me that they beat LAFC in the way that they do whenever you understand the way that LAFC plays. It doesn't surprise me that they beat Austin the way they did whenever you understand that Austin plays. Now, you're going to go against a Portland team that is a lot happier just giving the ball up and sitting back and sort of sitting into these low blocks. And so for me, when I see that, I say, okay, that's a different type of team than the LA Galaxy have been successful against. So, a big test of sort of whether or not the LA Galaxy can keep the momentum, and maybe we can talk a little bit about whether or not the break was good or bad for the Galaxy, but whether they can keep that momentum is how they do against Portland, who I expect to play a lot lower block and much more of a counterattacking side.
Of course, they already did beat Portland once this season, and that was one of their better performances. I remember 3-goal game up in Portland. I'm going to jump right to your other question, though. Was this good or bad? I think it's good. They had some injury problems. This gives Vasquez a chance to get 100%. It gives Costa a chance to get 100%. A guy like Kleshtin probably needs a little rest right now. They didn't have a ton of guys going off on international duty, which gives them an advantage over some other teams in the division or in the conference. So all in all, I think that, for a team like the Galaxy, which is one of the older teams, I actually think it probably was pretty good.
Yeah, but there's also the whole idea about, the momentum and whether or not you can sustain the momentum. I think they were exhausted. One of the things Greg Vanney said after the Austin game was just that he knew everybody was tired. And so he was like, listen, if you get the ball and you hold it, then you can rest. So do that. and let's fight through this sort of, this tired, because they're going to be tired too. And everybody was tired. There's been a handful of games over the international break in different MLS. So, I mean, I don't think that, there's any major advantage for the LA Galaxy to super rest on this, but you had guys like Sasha Kleshin, you had like Sega Coulibaly, who will be interesting to hear. LA Galaxy have an in-person media scheduled for Wednesday, so we should have an update on Coulibaly, whether or not he had to have surgery, how serious it is, that type of thing, because it's now been quite some time removed there, Kevin. But having said all that, it's one of those where I sit there and say, okay, so, is the break sort of killed off this momentum that was flying. And even if you look at that Austin game, I think they really finished that more with momentum than with anything else. So now what happens against Portland? How do they come out, and does the rest help, or did the rest hurt? And I'm sure Greg Vanney will tell you it's probably both, but at the same time, I don't think anybody's going to complain with as many games that the LA Galaxy had to play through, and understanding that Galaxy come back, Kevin, play Portland on Saturday, then have a Tuesday night Open Cup game. I mean, they're right back into the thick of things, and they're going to be playing a lot of games here. We'll close out June. It feels like June isn't that busy, but June ends up still having 4 games in it, and there isn't that, there's only half of a month left whenever they play their first game of June against Portland on the 18th. So it's coming fast.
And with the exception of the Sacramento game, which is, the Open Cup, different competition, whole different ball of wax. I mean, the 3 teams that they're playing next, coming out of the break, Portland, San Jose, and DC United. I mean, there's a real chance there for them to pick up some points. Those are teams that they should beat, frankly.
Every time you put any sort of expectation on this team, and it's been this way for a while, Kevin, we've seen it. Anytime you put any expectation for this team, these are teams they should beat. I could go back and show you the months on the games where the Galaxy should have played better. This whole getting to play home games in May was supposed to be the answer, and you had 2 losses and a draw in there, bookended by wins. But overall, 1.40 points per game in the month of May, when most of your home games were in that May timeframe. That's again, games the Galaxy, you expected them to beat Dallas, you expected them to beat Houston, and both of those came off very, very poorly for the Galaxy. So I get nervous, and that's something we haven't seen from this Galaxy team. And I think it's the next step, though. Whenever I'm really trying to put it all together and trying to line this up for this team, the next step is to win games they're supposed to win, and to win them not comfortably, because it's MLS and there's always an uneasiness about the game, but is to win those games, is to beat Portland. You have Portland at home. You have a chance to take the season series. You beat them in Portland. Now you can beat them down in Los Angeles. You have a chance to take that. That's a game that you would expect perhaps the LA Galaxy to win. You expect them to beat Sacramento Republic in the Open Cup. You expect that whenever they go up to San Jose, that San Jose is crazy, and you can never predict that game. And
that's the Stanford game, I believe.
It is. We talked about this on Thursday night, and I've seen even more, but San Jose is just like drooling at the mouth trying to make this Cali Classico the most important rivalry in Major League Soccer.
They don't have anything. They don't have any rivalry.
Yeah, sometimes they don't even have a soccer team. I've seen those guys play.
Well, you know who their rivalry is trying to be, because they played them a number of times in the U.S. Open Cup already, is Sacramento. And I talked to Todd Donovan, former Galaxy iconic defender, right? Played on a number of trophy-winning teams. The Galaxy, we had a little accident here. Played on a number of trophy-winning teams with the Galaxy. This is a game Sacramento is really looking forward to. I think the Galaxy could have some trouble with this. And what's interesting is the Galaxy, this will be their 3rd U.S. Open Cup game at home. The first was against Landon Donovan, former Galaxy superstar, comes in, plays. Then it was LAFC, which is a rivalry game. We don't need any extra for that. Now Todd Donovan, president of Sacramento Republic's, bringing his team down. He said there's some,
and future LA Galaxy president. That's in my mind. That's not something that's actually happening. But
he and I talked a little bit about that.
Okay.
And Todd is looking at this game sort of. He kept trying to steer the conversation away from whether it was personal, which gave me the impression that, it's a game that he really wants to win. If he could pick beating the Earthquakes or beating the Galaxy, he'd much rather beat the Galaxy. There's just that coming back to where he used to be.
Right.
But one other thing the Republic have going for them in this game, one of the things Todd said is this is the game the Galaxy is supposed to win, and we're not supposed to win it. And that that's a great position to be in, to be the underdog and just let caution go to the wind and just go out and play. But the other thing is if you remember a couple of years ago, Sacramento Republic were supposed to be an MLS expansion team, and Ron Burkle, the money guy, left literally days before the press conference to announce it, backed out, and now he is the owner of the San Diego Wave of the NWSL. That's where he took his money and his soccer interest, left Sacramento high and dry. They're still trying to put that back together again. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to do that, not anytime soon. But the point being, this was a franchise ready to jump to MLS. A lot of the players that are there now were there then. Certainly the whole front office was there then. And to come in and beat an MLS team at home this deep in the U.S. Open Cup, that's exactly what they want to do to prove to everybody that they are an MLS franchise, because they believe they are. They believe they're an MLS franchise playing in the USL Championship.
Do you think if I reached out to Todd that we could get him on the show for next Monday? You think?
I happen to know that you could, because I asked him about it.
Okay, all right. I will talk to Mr. Donovan and see if he'll come on. That way you won't have to recap all this. We'll have something new and exciting to talk about instead of you just talking about.
I didn't do a good job
recapping
recapping it.
Well, I'm just saying. I got
all the names right. I got Todd and Donovan and Landon and Don. All those names I got right.
You did fine. I'm just saying that if you think about what we're going to be talking next Monday, which would be the game over Portland, the game they played against Portland, and previewing the Open Cup game that takes place the next night, you would think that perhaps you'd want to take some of the stuff you're saying right now and keep that in your side pocket. I know this is me trying to figure out shows and how you
use it or
maximize
lose it, baby.
Yeah,
use
I know.
It or lose it.
I know. Anyway, so but that's super. I think that's going to be a fun game to look at. But again, hot and heavy, right? It's coming quickly for the LA Galaxy. And listen, somebody I saw people complaining that the Galaxy, and it wasn't Galaxy fans, it was other people saying stuff like, oh, well, the Galaxy only had to play one MLS team so far in the U.S. Open Cup. Yeah, because the other MLS teams lost. That's why. Otherwise, the Galaxy would have been playing the San Jose Earthquakes if they wouldn't have lost to the Sacramento Republic, right? So it's these little things that sort of pile up. And listen, it's a great draw for the LA Galaxy. It has been. I've talked about winning this tournament and how it's a product of a draw, and a good draw. And the more home games you have, the better off you have. And right now, the LA Galaxy have played one away game, and it was in Irvine. That was hardly an away game. Okay, so that's why the LA Galaxy have looked good in this competition. And it goes pretty much the same for almost any team that wins this competition. It's why Seattle was so prolific throughout their run. Was they always bid to host games whenever it was just a matter of, they had the money and other teams didn't. So they're like, well, we'll host the game. And whenever they did, they would get home game, and then eventually have to go on the road for one or two, but that was about it. So home games have always been sort of a key of the U.S. Open Cup and all sorts of things like that. Excuse me.
It allows you to. I think a lot of coaches differ on the importance of this. I don't think Bruce ever really took it that important. It's certainly in the latter years. Kurt Onofo coached a couple of games. I don't think he took it that important. Remember, they played on the track stadium. But when you don't travel, it's easier for you when you have a home game. You don't travel again. It makes it easier for you to take it seriously, because even going San Jose going to Sacramento, or Sacramento to San Jose, or Sacramento coming down here. If you're the MLS team and you have to travel, maybe you don't take your guys. That adds a little bit more to it. There's a long drive. Maybe there's a plane flight. Maybe there's a hotel night. And so that just adds the wear and tear. And maybe you don't take Chicharito to those games. Maybe you don't take Costa to those games.
I don't know. Chicharito did have to sit for 2 hours on a bus to get down to the OC Stadium down there in Irvine, which I think is hysterical. I would like to have a camera on the bus, just watching some of these guys, like Douglas Costa going, I have to ride on a bus for 2 hours to go to where?
You know what I want to know about that? Because you talked about that a lot, and it sounded like the guys were really in a good mood. And I came away from your conversation, your description of how the guys that weren't playing were in the stands just cutting up and having a good time. And was that one of those things where the team said, my teammates are playing, I want to go support them, I want to go watch the game, I want to have a good time with my friends? Mm-hmm. Or was that something where Vanney said, everybody on the bus at 5:00, whether you're playing or not? Because it makes a difference. If they just made the best of something they didn't want to do, that's still good news. But if they actually said, you know what, we really want to be there, we could have the night off, we really want to be there.
I will say that I imagine, and this is my my guess because I don't know the answer to it. I would imagine it's a little mixture of both, which was Greg Vanney said, "Hey, everybody's going on the bus because we're going to be down there to support everybody, and that's what you guys want to do, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's what we want to do." And so everybody got on the bus and they went down there. You know what I mean?
So yeah, it might be one of those things where Chicharito with, one of those things where Bruce always used to say, you don't treat everybody equal because everyone's not equal. So a Chicharito or Douglas Costa could go and say, I really don't want to make that trip. And then
Right.
Bruce would say, okay. And then, maybe in this instance, I don't know, Cameron Dunbar would say, if I'm not going to play, I really don't want to make the trip. And Bruce would say, that's too bad. Get on the bus or you're walking because you're going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know what you mean. Real quick, 2 super chats I want to take care of. Philly Flacco making it to another Monday here for us talking Galaxy news. We appreciate it, COG. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. $10 super chat and a little $5 super chat from Raphael as well. Thanks to Mrs. Panda for humanizing the panda. Thanks for stopping, K-Back. See, you're getting people don't know this, but it's kind of like the Grinch where he started to get nice and his heart started to grow a little bit bigger. People's hearts just got a little bit bigger because of you, and they're like, wow, he's not just a dick the whole time. Okay, cool.
Most of the time. But don't think bad of my friend Raphael there. He's probably a good guy all the time.
I'm sure he is, absolutely. And see, the rest of the story was after you said you guys can, get out of the car. Is everybody okay? The whole deal. You went and you slashed their tires. So that was the end part of that we didn't want to.
I forgot the last part of the NASCAR connection is I had parked so close to the barrier to get out of traffic lanes. I had to climb in and out of my car like a NASCAR driver, kind of like the Dukes of Hazzard. I had to go in and out the window. That was kind of cool. Good thing I saw it this weekend, so I know how to do it.
I was going to say, I can just imagine you being like, oh man, I saw them do this. I can do this. It's harder than it looks too, isn't it?
You've seen me. It's a good thing I had a big window.
Yeah, very big window. No, that's good. That's very good. So anyway,
the picture window, the windshield. I had to move the windshield out of the way.
I wanted to touch on Joveljic some more, just because I
think
it's
about time. Some of us have been on Joveljic the whole time.
Don't play that game. don't act like I didn't like. By the way, for all the people who, and I said this on Thursday, and let me say it again. If you're screaming start Joveljic, I disagree. I think he's playing exactly in the spot that he's supposed to be playing. But I did pull up some numbers for him, Kevin, just because I wanted to see sort of where he was at in terms of goal scoring and that type of thing. So I got my all-time LA Galaxy goal scorers in the single season. And listen, I'm not trying to say Dejan Joveljic is going to be at the top of this list whenever it gets done, but in some of these cases, it sort of gives me an idea of how many goals per game somebody scores or how many minutes per goal we're sort of averaging right now. And I would like to put Joveljic with his 226 minutes in league play and his 3 goals in league play, Kevin. He is averaging 1 goal every 75 minutes right now.
Yeah, and that's second in MLS with players that have at least 3 goals. I believe Ola Kamara
he may.
is the only one that's doing better.
Yeah, and so whenever you look at his minutes per goal, technically speaking, and listen, much smaller sample size, Zlatan Ibrahimovic with the LA Galaxy in 2019, where he scored 30 goals, scored 1 goal every 87 minutes. Right now, Joveljic, with his 226 small sample size, is 75 minutes per goal. That's better than what Zlatan was scoring at. So just keep that in mind.
Is it okay if I don't join you in comparing Joveljic to Ibra?
This is not a comparison that I want to make. Good. I just want to say that if we're looking at, you try to put these things in perspective, right? And so what's the perspective we get? He's scoring at a really high rate right now. And even if you go into some of his advanced stats and like expected goals and stuff like that, he's technically scoring underneath his expected goals, Kevin. That means he's not overperforming right now, which is something that's kind of crazy to think about for a little bit, right? So technically he should have a little bit more goals. Maybe he should have like half more goal whenever I was looking at some of the advanced stats. So he's right there. He's performing exactly at the rate, which means that he's getting chances, he's converting chances, and he's making the chances that he should, which is like the opposite of somebody like Kevin Cabral, who gets a chance and like his XG is like 400 and he has 1 goal, that type of thing.
By that thing, the Galaxy goalkeeper with the best goals against average and the most saves and everything per game is Mike McGee, but again, small sample size. I will say that one thing about Dejan is which I think made a difference against Austin is you're right. I mean, his best place may be coming off the bench, but he came off the bench this time. I believe played 45 minutes. and got the 2 goals and 2 assists, which, by the way, he's the first player in MLS history to contribute to 4 goals coming off the bench. But I think that's a much better role for him, multiple minutes so that he gets a chance to get into the flow of the game. Yes, he can make an impact in 10, 12, 15 minutes, but he's not Alan Gordon, who was an expert at that. I think Dejan needs a little bit more time to get into the game and read it. So 35, 40, 45 minutes, a halftime substitution for him is probably a really good place for him to be.
I really love him like at the 60th minute mark, which to me gives him 30 minutes every game, that type of thing. And then you can sort of see if you're winning that game, then you can pull Chicharito whenever you want to and give him rest, right? Because we've talked about his minutes and monitoring his minutes throughout this entire season as well. And quite honestly, he's played a ton of minutes. Now, that's one of the good things about this break, right? Is that Chicharito gets to take a break. He gets a.
He was in London. He was in England. Did you see that?
I did. I saw that he was out there and he was visiting, I think, his kids and his wife, because they're not divorced, but they definitely are separated and living apart. It certainly seems to be allegedly for all of that. But he was visiting his kids and doing that type of thing. But he's also, Kevin, and something that I don't think that we have touched on too much, he has been making some gestures, and there has been some movement with Tata Martino and the Mexican national team. There seems to be some tiny bit of momentum that perhaps Chicharito could find himself back with Mexico.
Ooh! Yes. I know all about that. I know stuff about that.
Go ahead. It's your floor, please.
So the first conversation, which happened in May, was one that apparently Chicharito was involved in pursuing and went through some common friends and was able to get to speak to Tata. And in that conversation, I don't know exactly the words that he used, but Tata came away from it thinking that he had gotten an apology, and Chicharito came away from it thinking that they had just had a discussion. And so that's important, though, because if Chicharito thinks that he gave Tata what he wanted without
doing it,
without actually doing it, I mean, that's good. Tata wanted to hear an apology, and he thought he heard it. That's great. Then Tata also said, because Mexico has just not been able to score, they did win their last game against Suriname. Unfortunately, Suriname will not be in the World Cup, so they're going to have to do a little bit better because they have Argentina and Poland in their group. But they're just not scoring at all. He definitely needs somebody to score, and Chicharito might be the guy. So apparently Tata was going to come to Los Angeles at the end of this June international break after the Nations League games, was going to come to Los Angeles and see Chicharito, and whether the timing was bad because of Galaxy stuff or Chicharito's travel, whatever it was, Tata said, no, we'll talk probably by Zoom. And he did confirm that he has every intention to speak with Chicharito and that's going to happen. Now, one of the interesting things is when this whole thing came down, this was in the fall of 2019, Chicharito scored in a game against the U.S. in the Meadowlands, reportedly violated some team rules during that international break, had a party at the hotel. Tata Martino wanted an apology from him for that party, but for apparently some other things that Chicharito had done that violated team rules. This is the history of the whole thing. Chicharito did not want to apologize, didn't think he needed to, hasn't been back with the team since. And one of the things that the Martino wanted to do was not to make it look like it was him against Chicharito, like one dictator determining who would be on the team. Right. So he enlisted a lot of the veterans, and a lot of the veterans also came out and said, no, Chicharito can't come back. This is a team. We have team rules. He violated the team rules. He needs to apologize. Now the word is that the entire Mexican team, the players, have all said, yeah, it's been long enough. He's suffered enough. He's paid his price, all of which means we need him for the World Cup because we don't have anyone that can score. 2 players apparently are holding out. It's Andres Guardado and Memo Ochoa. That's the reporting from Mexico, that they appear to be the 2 that are saying, we're not quite sure that we want him back yet. We don't know that we've heard enough. So in a way, you can kind of see, hey, maybe Tata kind of made this Frankenstein monster, and now it's not going to allow him to do what he wants.
It's these things obviously happen for a reason. I'm all about following rules. And I think that when rules are broken, that there's an understanding of what happens and how that sort of goes down, Kevin, right? I mean, that's my general understanding of just how things sort of go about. But when you look at the amount of stupidity that comes from all these national teams, like they are some sort of life or death situation, which they are absolutely not. Sports is not. And it's very important and very fun to watch and all that, but it's a sport whenever it comes down to it. But the amount of damage that I've seen happen to national teams or just teams in general from people with big egos thinking that they have way more power than they do, it ruins. I mean, listen, the biggest one that everybody can sort of point to is Zlatan Ibrahimovic not playing for Sweden. Do you know how much time he missed with Sweden, Kevin? Do you know how much international football Zlatan missed because of, big egos on his part and coach's part and federation part and all sorts of things in between? But it's been stupid that it lasted for as long as it did and he missed as much. And this is the same thing. Mexico need a scorer. Chicharito is their all-time leading goal scorer. He should be on that field. You can say whatever you want and you can make it however you want, but I think that means a lot for him personally to go and play internationally. And I think it behooves the LA Galaxy to have Chicha involved and wanting to play in the World Cup whenever it comes up this winter. That's what I think. I think it will benefit the LA Galaxy, and it can only benefit the LA Galaxy. I'm perfectly aware he could go off to Mexico and get injured, and so it's better not to play those games. But when you see how he gets motivated and how he plays, I think it's a good thing that this seems to be working towards resolution, even if I find it ridiculous in most cases.
Well, there's a little bit of history at stake here, too, for the Galaxy franchise. I don't think Grandsir or Cabral are going to get called up by France. Madagascar didn't make the World Cup. So, I mean, there's, they do have Raheem Edwards, who has an outside chance of making the Canadian team because he's in pretty good form. They'll be in the World Cup. But other than that, it might be Julian Araujo. The Galaxy this will be the first team, unless something changes, this will be the first time the U.S. national team has played in a World Cup without a Galaxy player on its roster.
Yeah, and so
if they can send somebody from Mexico, that's almost like
right. Julian Araujo is a possibility, but he's sort of right on that fringe right now. Let's talk a little bit about the international players. You brought it up. There's a bunch of them. Efrain Alvarez, I think, has scored at least 2 goals with the U21s. Here's the thing. Nobody should be excited about the fact that Efrain Alvarez is playing with Mexico U21s and tearing it up. I think that's good. It shows that his form is sort of carrying it over, but Julian Araujo is not a U21 player, right? I mean, you can see it whenever he plays. He's much better than the U21s. The problem is that whenever he plays up with senior teams, that there's a gap there, that he doesn't quite reach that level. But the fact that he's gotten 2 goals, at least 2 goals, he may even have 3 goals in this U21 tournament for Mexico. He's very good at this level of competition. He's much better than the kids he's basically playing against. And so you see that, and that's good. But the bottom line is that this is a guy who is expected to be playing on the Mexican national team, and he is not in that picture right now. Not at all. And so I think that's a step backwards. Good that he's getting some international play. Good that he's keeping up his level. But whenever you look at Efrain Alvarez right now with the U21s, that's not where he should be playing.
No, he should have been in the Suriname game, because that's the guys that Tata's looking for perhaps audition for the World Cup team, he's on another continent.
Yeah, he is not in that zone at all. So, good that he's with the U21s. Julian Araujo didn't get any of the friendly matches, but did get to play against Suriname. Got his first competitive international start, picked up a yellow card in the 10th minute. Probably not the best thing for Tata whenever it all comes down. Played all 90 minutes in that 3-0 win over Suriname, so that's good. They have another CONCACAF Nations League game coming up tomorrow night, so 6/14
at
June
Jamaica.
14th. Yeah, at Jamaica versus Mexico, so they'll be playing in that one. We'll see if Julian Araujo gets to have another run out against Jamaica as well. So I think if you're an LA Galaxy fan, perhaps no would be a better thing. So that way he would be ready for this weekend and ready to go. But at the same time, this is about him and trying to find that World Cup team. I'm trying to go over here real quick because I was watching. It is still okay. So I was checking Raheem Edwards. Now you talked about Raheem Edwards a little bit. Raheem Edwards did get called up for Canada. He's on the fringe, but he's been on the bench. We have not seen him play any minutes yet. And I'm just going to go through here real quick to make sure that I don't see him coming on. Nope. And they've used all 5 subs, it looks like. Yeah, they've used all 5 subs by the 67th minute. And it doesn't look like Raheem Edwards is going to find the field again. So they're losing 1-0 right now to Honduras. That game's being played as we're recording. So Raheem Edwards didn't get a run out against Curacao whenever Canada beat them 4-0. Now in Honduras, doesn't get a run out against Honduras with Canada. So he's right on that edge.
But he lost his best chance when they boycotted those 2 games before the Nations League games. They had a couple of friendlies they were going to play. And I thought that's where he was going to get a chance. I mean, I don't know that John Herdman knows enough about him or feels comfortable enough about him to put him in a competitive game. But I think he wanted to get a look at him. That's why he called him in, get a look at him maybe in those friendlies. And those were not played because anyone who wasn't up to speed, Canada decided they weren't going to play those games over a wage dispute that has a lot to do with the women's national team as well. So that's probably why Raheem Edwards lost his chance.
Yeah, it very well could have. We go to Kelvin Leerdam. Leerdam has been playing a bunch with Suriname.
With Suriname?
Yeah, it's Suriname. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, trust me, I got it. I looked it up and everything.
So did he play against Julian?
He did. He did play against Julian Araujo. There was actually some video of those two after the game whenever they were talking. So they were hanging out saying it. He's played in 3 90-minute games so far. There was a 1-1 draw on the 4th with Jamaica. That was a 90-minute game for Kelvin. Another 90-minute game, a full game for him in a loss at Jamaica, so 3-1. So they went 1-1 draw with Jamaica at home. And then they went away to Jamaica and lost 3-1. And then they lost on June 11th, 3-0 loss to Mexico. Also played 90 minutes in that game as well. So he's been on that one. The final player that we have on the senior circuit, so to speak, is Ryan Raveloson. He played 90 minutes in Madagascar's 1-1 draw versus Angola on June 5th. That was an Africa Cup of Nations qualifying game there. The only other players that I sort of wanted to highlight here, Jalen Neal, Marcus Fercranis, and Johnny Perez. Neal and Fercranis have been called up to the U.S. U20s, and Johnny Perez has been called up to the Mexico U20s, and this is for the CONCACAF U20 Championship. This is going to be between June 18th and July 3rd in Honduras. Basically, 4 teams will qualify for the 2023 FIFA U20 World Cup in Indonesia, and 2 teams, the top 2 teams, will qualify for the 2024 Olympics in Paris. So this is a super big, important tournament for these guys. You have Jalen Neal out there, you have Marcus Fercranis for the U.S., and then on the Mexico U20 side, Johnny Perez out there as well. So just sort of keep an eye on that as that starts to play out here in the middle of June. But that means that those guys will not be with the LA Galaxy whenever they come back and start playing against Portland.
What about Efrain's availability for those U20 games?
He has not been called up to it yet.
If he gets called up for a CONCACAF U20 tournament, that is really a super big bad sign.
I mean, but at the same time, this is one of the most important tournaments. It's not only qualifying for the Olympics, right, which the U.S. has been dying to do, but also Mexico, qualifies for the Olympics to play in it. But it's also the U20 World Cup. It is a big deal. It's just that if you're Efrain Alvarez, again, you should be on the senior team, not the U21s, not the U20s. Mm-hmm. That's where he should be sort of looking at stuff. So anyway, that was the international update I think that everybody had, that everybody was sort of looking at. And so lots of players going. I think the last games are being played tomorrow night, so everybody should be returning after tomorrow night and coming back. And I would imagine that Greg Vanney will tell us on Wednesday that those guys get back and that he would expect that they're probably available to play. But some of these guys have played. Leerdam has played 270 minutes since he went away, so that's a lot. And while he's a sub for the LA Galaxy most of the time, you would expect that he's still available on the bench, that type of thing, whenever they go against Portland. Araujo, I would imagine, can probably, even if he plays 90 minutes on Tuesday night for Mexico, that he would be able to be available again for the weekend. So I don't expect Raveloson might already be back by now, because I think they only had one game that they were playing and that game's over. So he's probably, headed back and doing all that. So for the most part, I don't expect this to really impact the LA Galaxy for this weekend, but we'll hear from Greg Vanney on Wednesday about whether or not that's true. So,
but by the way, you talked about Greg Vanney speaking on Wednesday, and you hope to get some news about Sega Coulibaly. He got hurt like about a month ago, and they've been on break a couple of weeks, and we were wondering about the surgery before they took the break. Why? I'm troubled. Why did the Galaxy do that? I guess a lot of MLS teams do it too. But if he has surgery, say he had surgery, like for example, Angel City today said Christian Press had torn her ACL.
Yeah.
They didn't wait for like a press conference. They didn't wait 2 weeks, to release the news. If the guy goes in for surgery and he's a major player like that, I could see if it's an academy guy, but if it's a major player like that, why not send out a press release?
Well, we don't know if he had surgery or not. So that's one of the things. I mean, I understand what you're saying, right? But at the same time, there was questions about whether or not they still didn't know severity and whether or not they were even going to suggest surgery, or whether or not it was going to be something that they could just rest. So there's a good chance that there wasn't surgery. And if that's the case, then that's why they
That
probably
would be a
didn't
good
announce it.
That would be a good release, a good reason not to announce there was surgery. If
Right.
surgery.
I mean, but at the same time, I could also see them going, "Oh no, he did have surgery, and it was a minor procedure or whatever it was." But yeah, I mean, you're right. There was, they I doubt. We have seen them say, "Hey, this person had surgery," and they put out a press release. I have gotten those before.
Yeah. But my favorite one is a lot of times, a lot of teams do this, and even other teams in other sports will say, no, we want the manager or the coach to make that announcement. You call and say, hey, did, so-and-so, how is he doing? Did he have surgery? Well, you have to wait and talk to the coach at the press conference tonight.
Right.
And then the coach will say, yes, Josh Guesman, he had a procedure done on his knee, and he's out for 3 weeks. What was the procedure? I don't know. Can you give us some details? I don't know. You have to talk to the medical people. Well, you just told us we can't ask the medical people. We have to wait for you. So why they do that? They have a medical staff. Why not let the medical staff tell us what happened?
Yep. By the way, the chat room is talking to us and asking for a Farai Mutatu update. I think, yeah, I know. I want to, and it's about that time where it's probably necessary. I can't do it today, but it's going to be about asking Greg Vanney about it, in a more public forum. So I think that time has probably come for us to do that. So if I make it out on Wednesday, that's one time, but I might also be able to do it after the game. Or perhaps after the U.S. Open Cup game. It's one of those things. So we will figure out.
Can we hint? I mean, he's not. It's not an illness. It's not a
no.
It's more of a kind of a.
It's a paperwork. Yeah, it's a paperwork thing. So we'll see.
And they want to get it done. The Galaxy have not lost. In your last conversation, right? You're the one that's following this.
Yeah.
The Galaxy have not lost interest. This is still a guy that they're very high on. And
they are. But eventually there comes a time where if things don't progress and can't progress, then maybe there won't be. So anyway, I want to give the whole thing, and I want Greg Vanney to chance to answer it publicly, so that way we can get sort of the full thing, and then I can go into some of the details that we've talked about and do that. So we will be there.
It's a bombshell. It's going to blow the socks off.
Yeah, everybody's gonna freak out. What's his Fabrizio Romano will probably have to tweet about it. That's how big it now. It's not. So it's just something. But I'm not trying to be secretive. It's just I'm trying to respect the process a little bit. But we're at that point where it's probably time to talk about it. So
lives are at stake. We have to be quiet.
But I mean, so that sort of leads us into a little bit of transfer talk, right? Which is. We talked about on Thursday, and the Galaxy had the picnic at the pitch, which is the premium season ticket holders got to sit on the side of the training field, and the guys did a training in front of them, and then they got to talk to Greg Vanney and the whole thing, and so they were able to ask Greg Vanney some questions, and one of our listeners, Tony, was able to ask Greg Vanney about a central attacking midfielder, and Greg sort of said, yeah, it's one of those places. Anytime you ask Greg about it, he's going to say yes, that's something they're looking for, not necessarily. There's this argument about central defensive midfielder, central attacking midfielder, blah, 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 the whole deal. Vanney was very critical of Efrain Alvarez just in the way that he was talking about it. He said, we'd hope that Efrain Alvarez was going to be able to take over some of these duties, and that hasn't happened, so we need to go out and we try to find somebody. I mean, when you hear that, that's pretty damning of what you expect from a coach about talking about players, right, Kevin? I mean, you're like, oh, well, we expected him to do this, but he didn't, and so he's not. Basically, that means he's not meeting our expectations. Which if you're watching and you have eyes, you could see that. That's fine. That's understandable. So now it's about what the LA Galaxy go out and do, and whether it's a central attacking midfielder or central defensive midfielder. And Vanney was very sort of cagey on it, which is, I don't think he wants to say, hey, we're really desperate for a central attacking midfielder, because then all of a sudden everybody goes, oh, so you need a cam, huh? Well, let me just jack that price up about 20%, right? So he's trying to be like, oh, maybe we do, maybe we don't. If the price is right, if the fit is right, then we're going to do it. I don't think there's any chance the LA Galaxy don't get through this transfer window without adding a player, and I think they're going to add a player at that central attacking midfield. The only thing that sort of throws any sort of hiccup in that for me, Kevin, which is going to sound crazy for a second, is whether or not Sega Koulibaly has surgery and how long that is. And if it's going to be long-term to the LA Galaxy splash on a targeted allocation money central defender, even though the LA Galaxy have 1 bazillion central defenders. I don't know that Nick DePuy is the answer there. I don't know that Eric Zavaleta, who's been injured a little bit, is the answer. And so whenever you look at the backups and sort of where they're at, you're like, those guys are good backups, but are they starters? And Sega Coulibaly was one of the most consistent defenders the LA Galaxy had. So I really think it's going to be between those two positions, whether it's that central attacking midfield, central defensive midfielder, or another center back, which is just crazy top whenever like you would say, oh, the LA Galaxy are definitely going to sign another center back.
Well, I hope they get the central attacking midfielder just because I want to say they got a Cam with Jam and Tam.
Right. That's the only reason.
That's the only reason. But
right.
You're right about the situation at center back because Zavaleta came in at the very end, right before the season, actually into the season. They're not paying him very much. It was almost like, he had nowhere to go and they gave him a few dollars to come over here. And I think DePuy, you're right. I mean, if he started the season, right, he was, at least in the preseason, he was the guy, or he was given a lot of opportunity to seize that spot and he didn't. And I think Greg has kind of lost confidence in him a little bit. So I think he sees him as a decent backup, but I don't think he wants him playing 90 minutes, every game. So if Coulibaly is going to miss any significant time, I definitely think that their desires are going to change a little bit and they're going to have to fill that. But what you said earlier about, if the Galaxy tip their hand of what they want, the price goes up. Guess what? The Galaxy are going to overpay for every player they get. Why? Because of the Galaxy. And especially now with Greg Vanney and his reputation, when he was in Toronto, they led the league in spending and payroll by a lot every year. And so you have, one of the biggest, richest franchises, one of the richest owners in world soccer, forget MLS, with this team. And then you have the coach that spends a lot. And if they go looking for a player, guess what? They're going to pay a lot more for the same player than Sporting Kansas City or Real Salt Lake are going to pay.
Yeah, I mean, you said you're not wrong, and the bottom line is the history favors the LA Galaxy spending the money they have, and then with Greg Vanney in there, it just sort of says, oh yeah, for sure you're spending money. So I mean, it's not a surprise.
But there's the flip side to that, which is also good, is they're going to get players that Sporting Kansas City and Real Salt Lake are going to get, not for the money. I mean, if you're a guy like a Robbie Keane or Ashley Cole, and you think maybe I want to dip my toe in MLS and check it out and really haven't got much going on over here, they are not ringing up Real Salt Lake or Sporting Kansas. I was really surprised to see, some of the players that have got like Bastian Schweinsteiger wind up in Chicago. Those players are going to come here. And so if there is a central attacking midfielder that wants to move and that can be had, he's probably going to listen to the Galaxy's offer. And then, the Galaxy are going to pay a little bit more, but guess what? They got the player to talk to. I just don't think those players are interested in going to some other teams in MLS. As much as everyone talks about, MLS is such a great league, there are destinations, the Seattles, the New Yorks, LA, both teams in LA, and probably Miami now. And I think that's where a lot of the players that are coming over want to go.
I hesitate to say this just because I know Galaxy fans will get excited whenever I do, but there is potential for a blockbuster type deal in this. And the only reason I can say that with any sort of terms of certainty, or at least predicting that something bigger could happen. Like whenever you sit there and say, okay, well, the LA Galaxy have a max TAM guy, so we know that's $1.6 million plus, right? And so that's the limit you're allowed to spend on that. But what the LA Galaxy also have is an opening DP spot in Chicharito after this summer. And so you could see something, Kevin, like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, obviously not Zlatan level, because I don't know. Maybe you could get Cristiano Ronaldo. That would be Zlatan level, right? Cristiano Ronaldo, you could get him for $1.6 million for like 6 months, right? It's one of those where you could figure out how to make it work again for a short period of time and then give a designated player spot for the next season. And so that's something that could happen. It is a possibility. Having said that, I don't expect that. I think the LA Galaxy are trying to find a piece to a puzzle. I think that they ultimately they would like Douglas Costa's DP slot back and be able to spend a DP slot on a central attacking midfielder in the $4 to $5 to $6 million range. That would sort of fill that, but they're going to have to find a discount one at 1.6 in order to make that fit, and then sort of deal with any of the DP stuff that they have over the next season. So I'm not 100% convinced, and I don't think anybody should be, and I don't think Chicharito is, and I don't think the LA Galaxy are, and I think it's to be expected, is whether or not you think the LA Galaxy are going to pick up Chicharito's option right now. If you're the LA Galaxy, I wouldn't be entertaining that, would you, Kevin? Not, at least not right now.
No, but the other thing with what you're talking about makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that figure in this is the World Cup. And we know LAFC had a big signing. Giorgio decided to come to MLS at 37, almost 38, when Italy did not qualify for the World Cup. If they were going to play in the World Cup, he was going to stay, and he was going to play in Europe, and he was going to play against top competition in Serie A, and he was going to go to the World Cup. He doesn't have a World Cup to play in now with Italy. So, and he had a year left on his contract with Juventus, so he got out of that and came to MLS, and that was the time to do it. There's good and bad with the World Cup. And the way I look at it is a guy like Giorgio, who's done everything and can relax a little bit, he might want to come to MLS right now. So you might get that blockbuster player if he's an older player on a team that is not going to a World Cup. He may decide this is the time to make the move. Another player that might decide it's time to make the move is a guy on a country that is going to the World Cup, but he needs to prove himself. He's a bubble player, and he needs to prove himself. And yeah, you would think he'd want to stay and play in the Premier League or play in Serie A. But no, he may want to come over here and get a full run of games to prove himself. Remember, the European season is not going to start until late August, early September. They're going to have some international breaks. The World Cup, everyone's going to break for the World Cup in November. So that player would have a limited number of games to prove his fitness. If he came over to MLS, yes, the competition is different, but he would be able to play himself into shape, would be able to have a run of games to prove himself. I think that general managers like John Thornton at LAFC and Greg Vanney too have talked about they are seeing some heightened interest in Europe in those kind of players. Right. So maybe the chance for that kind of blockbuster you were talking about may be much higher at this time than maybe it will be next year or was last year.
Yeah, it very well. I'm certainly not discounting it. I believe, does the transfer window open July 6th? I want to say it's 6th. It may be the 8th. I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, it's coming.
They got to climb through like NASCAR drivers.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they have to do. So anyway, so that's sort of where we sit. I just wanted to look at standings and listen, there were some games, so I just wanted to make sure that nothing overly changed. In the Western Conference, LAFC with 29 points, 2.07 points per game. Dallas at 25 points. Salt Lake City at 25 points. They have one more game than most teams. So they're 1.67 points per game. Austin at 24 points, 1.71 points per game. The LA Galaxy 23 points, 1.64 points per game. Nashville has played 15 games. They're at 23 points, 1.53 points per game. So below the LA Galaxy there. Houston at 18 points, 1.29. Minnesota below the line, Colorado below the line, Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, San Jose, Kansas City. And Kansas City just keeps plummeting. I'm surprised. I really think Peter Vermees may have to move on from his head coaching role. It doesn't seem to be getting better, although they are going out and looking for some reinforcements, it seems like. So that's happening. On the Eastern Conference side, New York City at the top with 26 points. Philadelphia 25, Montreal 23, New York 23, Orlando 21, Charlotte 19, Cincinnati 19. Below the line right now, New England with 19 points, so they're tied right there at number 8. They have Miami, Columbus, Atlanta, Toronto, DC, and Chicago all below the line on the Eastern side of things. So really interesting as it all goes down. It goes West Coast, Western Conference, Eastern Conference, Western, Eastern, Western, Eastern, and then the LA Galaxy with Western. It's very much a seesaw back and forth. A lot of times we see it get logjam with one conference or the other sort of at the top. But right now at 2.07 points per game, it's LAFC. The LA Galaxy have beat them twice so far this year. That does say something. I'm not sure what it says yet, but it says something. I will let you know at the end of the season whether it means anything or not.
Well, yeah, Galaxy 4 of their wins are against LAFC and Austin. Although that second LAFC win doesn't count in the standings, but
right.
But those are supposed to be really good teams. At least early in the season, they've proven that they were playing well.
Yeah, but but they lost against Dallas, right? And so that's Dallas's third in the Supporters Shield whenever you look at it. Montreal, New York, Nashville, Galaxy.
They beat New York, the best team in the East. One of their few losses New York has was against the Galaxy.
Yep, New York City they beat. There's just this. I don't know. I don't know. Pete, I know we're supposed to be able to tell you because especially with the second half of the season coming here, Kevin. Second half of the season, with quote unquote second half of the season. 17 games is the first half, and then there's 17 games after that. We're not there yet, but we're calling it second half of the season after this international break and sort of this slowing of momentum around the league. Now it should start to build into a frenzy over the summer and all that sort of stuff. So we're watching that, but so one base question to ask you: is this team better than the team was last year?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. And I think if you look at if you don't look at any of the standings, you don't look at any of that, just in the way that they play, I would say they're better than this team, than the team was last year. Some of the stats support that as well. Some of the stats don't. I mean, technically last year's team had more points at this juncture than the LA Galaxy did. Than the LA Galaxy in 2022 did. In fact, they had 2 more points, right? So in 2021 through 14 games, LA Galaxy had 25 points. The LA Galaxy in 2022 have 23 points. Technically, if you go on points, the 2021 team was better. The 2019 team was better. Having said that, I would argue that 2019 team was actually pretty good. And that 2021 team was not, because pretty soon you're not going to see those point totals start climbing for that 2021 team anymore. They're going to stay exactly where they were because there was a giant collapse in the last third of the season. And if the LA Galaxy can avoid that and play with some consistency through the summer and through all these games that are mounting up and all these things that are coming, they can stay healthy, then you're going to see a better team.
It's the eyeball test with this Galaxy team. Yeah, you can look at the numbers and say those other teams were better, but this team still has a lot of room to grow. I think the ceiling is still very high, and I don't think they're close to it. When you look at the fact that New York City has lost 3 games, 1 to the Galaxy. LAFC has lost 3 games, 1 to the Galaxy. Austin's lost 4 games, 2 to the Galaxy. You know this team can play at a very high level, but then you see some of the eggs they've laid, especially at home, and you say, well, they don't play that way every time. And if they can continue to put it together like they did just before the break, I just think they have a chance to really be a good team. I just see more upside to this team. And so, yeah, at this point last year's team was much better, and they had a better record, and they were beating teams. But I just didn't. It almost felt like they were doing it with smoke and mirrors. Like, this is the best they can do, and if anything goes slightly wrong, they're going to fall apart. And they did. This team feels different. It feels the other way around. Like, they're playing really well, but they can be so much better than they are.
Yeah, super interesting just to see how teams are changing too, and I think that this transfer window. And listen, the reason some teams can add players right now are some players can be out of contract, right? If you're out of contract, then technically you can join a team whenever you want. There's outside of the roster freeze deadline, you can't. So Cellini coming to LAFC. I think Hector Herrera with Houston, right? So he's with the Houston Dynamo now. I totally forgot that was happening, and I saw like a picture of that, and I was like, oh, there's one. Okay, I see it.
Yeah, but that happened at the end of May, I think.
Yeah,
he would come over.
Yeah, and so again, if you're out of contract, then you're able to come over and be added to the roster. If you're still under contract, then you're going to have to wait until the transfer window opens, and so that'll open in July, the beginning of July, and it'll basically go through the beginning of August. So you're going to have 30-something days to get in there and make additions and do that stuff. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see which team. There's always one team that gets a guy in the middle that transforms them and makes them a much better team. I feel like this LA Galaxy team is missing a piece in the middle, and if they get that piece in the middle, if they're able to go and get a Cam and get that piece in the middle that positively affects this team, then I think you're going to see a different LA Galaxy team in the second half of the season. And I think that's going to be super interesting to watch. So the Galaxy, I feel like, have enough pieces in place right now. Yes, there's some bad contracts. Yes, there's a hope right now, Kevin, that Douglas Costa doesn't play anymore because with the way Cabral and Grandsir are running on the outside channels and sort of how this team is starting to develop without him on the field, there's a good chance that this Galaxy team can be good. If you have to force him into playing more, I think this team takes a little step backwards, which is going to be a super interesting storyline to watch for the second half of the season as well. How much playing time does Douglas Costa get? How did the LA Galaxy wriggle out of his contract? Because so far it seems to be a pretty big bust, right? So, yeah.
Let me ask you, how are you going to pay for that, Cam?
$1.6 million. There's a target out. We know, we're fairly certain.
So with Tam or maybe Jam.
Yeah, no, Tam.
Tam. Okay.
Tam.
It's a Cam. It's a Tam Cam.
It's a Tam Cam. Yes, absolutely. We should get a shirt that says Tam Cam on it whenever they go to sign one. That's
I got a shirt. I got a shirt from you, which I still need to wear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can wear it wherever you want. You probably won't be at the game this weekend, so I won't see you. So
I will be at the U.S. Open Cup game.
Oh, look at you! Are you allowed to go to that game? Are you sure?
There's no NASCAR that week.
Very good, very good. So anyway, that's sort of where we sit there. Let's see. What is it? Jonathan is in the chat room and he says, Josh, what is rule number 1 with DPs? They have to make a difference in play. None of our DPs have set us up for success. Chicharito has. I am still very bullish on Cabral. I think it's going to work. It's going to be painful, but it's going to work. And so I think Cabral, it's Costa right now is the dead spot. And so that's gonna hurt the LA Galaxy. That's a huge handcuff. Basically, you have to play with one hand behind your back whenever you have a DP that you don't want to play on the field, right? I mean, if you're gonna, and Greg Vanney knows this, you have to hit on your designated players, Kevin. You have to get your designated players right. And the LA Galaxy, big surprise, have not hit on their designated players in a long time. Chicharito has shown instances of being a game-changing designated player. And if he played more games last year, the Galaxy make the playoffs. This year, he's a little more quiet, but I like the way that he's playing more team ball and just the players around him. Listen, we've been complaining about the LA Galaxy needing... Yeah, I'm still here, Kevin. We've been complaining about the LA Galaxy and sort of, finding that other goal scorer, finding that other guy. And so I think that, Joveljic really could be that other guy. Get him that 45, 30 minutes every single game because he needs to be on the field as much as you can do it without sort of affecting how the LA Galaxy want to play. So anyway, that's sort of where I'm at. Is there anything else, Kevin, that you want to touch on, or did I lose you? Oh, maybe I did lose Kevin. Maybe he just went away. That's okay too. I don't know that we have to have Kevin for the rest of this show. As a matter of fact, I was just getting ready to wrap things up anyway, so I'm not sure it matters. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We'll see. But anyway, no. So I'm glad that we could sort of get everybody back and here, and we're on a Monday night, and things are going well again. So I hopefully that means that the LA Galaxy are ready and for this game coming up against Portland. So really interesting sort of time to be watching the LA Galaxy. I think a lot of things are sort of going to change. A lot of things are going to happen. And I think that you're going to see an LA Galaxy team that either drives sort of into this drift in the second half of the season, or you're going to see sort of a regression a little bit. So anyway, that's where we're at. LA Galaxy playing against the Portland Timbers coming up on, oh, look, Kevin wants to get back in the show. I was going to say the LA Galaxy playing against the Portland Timbers coming up on Saturday. That's Saturday. Let's see. Saturday, June 18th. It's 2 p.m. kickoff time, so early. ESPN Deportes is where you can find it on TV.
Kickoff time.
2 p.m. TV start time, 2:08 p.m. kickoff time, as it says on my graphic.
Yeah, you didn't even know I was gone, did you?
No, I did. We were all. Okay. Everybody in the chat room was rejoicing. Yes, absolutely. So anyway,
not rescuing more stranded motorists.
No, you're at home now, so you're probably just slashing Mrs. Panda's tires at this point. So anyways, that's the game coming up on Sunday at Dignity Health Sports Park, and then there's a Tuesday night game, U.S. Open Cup against the Sacramento Republic, also on the docket coming up very quickly. The LA Galaxy have some success recently, winners of 3 in a row against the Portland Timbers, and you would say, wow, that's really good, except Portland won 3 in a row before that, so this is a very much back and forth sort of affair between these two. But yeah, that's where we sit. All right, Kevin, I was going to say, we really didn't even need you because I was going to wrap everything up anyway, but is there anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here?
No.
All right, very good. If you're looking
look at that shirt. Look at that shirt. Is that a new one?
This one? No.
Yeah.
No, I've had this for a long time. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter, you can find him at kbaxter11. Head on over to latimes.com where you can find all of his writing. NASCAR, sports, soccer, all that fun stuff right there. latimes.com. Go subscribe. I'm a subscriber, just in case anybody want to know. I'm the one, in case anybody want to know. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at jguesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com for all of our podcasts, our shows, our videos, our media availabilities, all that fun stuff right there. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. We really appreciate it. All right, for Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh Patrick Guesman. You've been listening. You've been watching Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.